Welcome back, traveler. It's been a while, but I'm here, ready to do this. That's so dumb. Welcome back, traveler. It's been a while, but we're here to jump back into things, to talk about books, all things nerdy, especially fantasy. In this video, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subgenres, and that is, of course, Grimdark. I'm going to be telling you about 22 books that I consider are Grimdark, and talking about the ones that I've read, the ones that I've yet to read, the ones I've enjoyed, the ones I haven't enjoyed so much. Rest assured, I'm not here to re-explain or tell you what Grimdark is. There's loads of debate online as to what it is, what it isn't, what classifies as Grimdark and what doesn't. I'm just going to be showing you the books that I think are, so, there might be some debate. That's okay, everybody's allowed their opinions. So I decided to go through chronologically in order of publication. Also as a study into how long Grimdark has been around. It's not a new revelation, it has been with us for a little bit. And if you wait to the end, I'll reveal the oldest, in my opinion, Grimdark story, and one of my favorites, but that is until the end. Without further ado, let's jump straight in. The first book on my list, it might not be considered Grimdark, but I thought that there were enough elements of it, and that's Shardik by Richard Adams. He's the guy who wrote Watership Down about the cute bunnies that kill each other, published in 1974, quite a while ago. This is a low fantasy book about the arrival of a bear predicted in prophecies about it being a god, an omen of good or evil, and how this one simpleton, Derek, gets swept along in the path. Now, I chose this because there are elements of people who are morally grey, who are doing what they want to try to benefit themselves, benefit each other, and along the way, this giant bear who's adorable gets used and abused, and so does the main character. There are also some pretty dark subtext to this. Some pretty grim things go on in it, and it is a wonderful, enchanting book, so definitely one of my favorites. The next one might have some people debating whether it is Grimdark or not. I read this recently, and I thought there were enough elements in it that made it Grimdark. That's The Gunslinger by Stephen King, published in 1978, or at least the first part of the story in its magazine form, and 1982 in the full novelized version. Now, this isn't really horror, as Stephen King is known for. This is his sort of backlash to the abundance of fantasy, the fantasy tropes, elves and dwarves and hobbits and adventure, and he created this sort of Western apocalyptic world. Really interesting, and again, this classifies for me because there is no good or bad character. Everyone's kind of in a messed up situation. The main character does some questionable things at best, and it feels gritty and real, and you can sort of feel the decay of this world. So I classify this as Grimdark. The next one that I'm sure people will agree with is the apparent grandfather of Grimdark, and that is Glen Cook in his Black Company. The Black Company. I did enjoy this. It is about a group of mercenaries who are hired to basically do whatever their contract assigns them to do, and they find themselves caught in the middle of these powerful struggles between different forces, different powers. And this one really felt to me, the style felt like Vietnam pulp. It's written in a jokey kind of way where it's a bunch of lads together at war. Some really gross things happen. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Magic is involved in this. Wasn't the best book that I've ever read, but it was enjoyable to at least see the kind of the moral gray areas, the fact that people could flip-flop between what they thought was right and not. I haven't read anything else in the series, probably won't, but did enjoy it. It felt quite pulpy, quite sort of military adventure. Also published in 1984 is Legend by David Gemmell. Now, I'm sure that people will agree with this. Very grimdark, gritty, bloody, and really good military fantasy. Basically, the last stand where a fortress is the only doorway between an invading horde that's going to ravage through the land and a bunch of adventurers and misfits who have to hold the gate and find ways of pushing back entire armies. This was really good. Characters that are dubious, they're out for themselves, but in the end there's a glimmer of hope, which is nice, but it is pretty brutal. So I really loved this. I might have to try and read some of the other stuff. I did read Quest for the Lost Heroes as well. That was the first one that I read randomly, and it felt a little bit more sort of high fantasy, but this one definitely has that grittiness to it. The next one might cause some debates. I've seen it on some lists of Grimdark. Other people will debate until they're blue in the face that this is not Grimdark, but it is The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, published in 1995. Again, we're talking about some old literature, some old texts that are considered Grimdark. Now, I thought this was Grimdark because the concept is quite grim. The characters are put through ordeals and situations that are less than ideal, and the way they have to go about resolving these things aren't always the best. A lot of bad things happen to the characters. I've heard that later on in the series, worse and worse things happen to the characters, but beautifully written, really lush prose, very immersive. Not my favorite, because I felt like the first book was a setup to continue reading the series, because some things were unresolved, and I was a little upset by that. But again, good, sad, gritty, lovely. Now this one I'm sure that most people will agree with, and this was the first one that when the TV series came out, I realized that Grimdark had already been done. And I felt quite sad, but kind of reassured that it has been around for a while. But published in 1996 is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This, again, is the top of the military and political Grimdark. The multiple points of view. Each character in themselves have things to overcome. And again, the way they go about doing that is questionable. You've got some really interesting characters. Who can you trust? Who can you not? It's all up in the air. Beautifully written. There was a bit of a slog at one point, but one of the things that George R. R. Martin does brilliantly is describe food. Now, if you want to have your mouth watering at descriptions of banquets, read this. But again, this is one series I will be continuing because it's really good. Now, here's a book that I've spoken about in the past. I managed to get through reading it. I'm not sure if it is published in 2000 or in the 80s, but this is Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. This is the double pack of the first two. Now, I loved the beginning of Shadow of the Torturer. I think the setup was amazing. The ambience of this sort of torturers guild where they are was really immersive, and the conversations that he has with the other characters, some of the inmates, the relationships that he creates, and the questionable actions he takes was awesome. Now, not to give too much away, but later on I feel like it lost its way. It kind of it became less about him and his role and his place in the world, and it kind of just became this strange adventure, entertaining but not very gripping. Really well written. I love his prose. Some people say that it is too difficult, there's too many scientific words and complex vocabulary. There is a reason for that. So if you are shying away from big vocabulary, don't. Really easy to read, fun, but I don't think we're going to continue this unless it goes back to the semblance of the beginning of the story. Now, one of my favorite Grimdark books of all time so far, and again, I haven't read everything, published in 2005, is The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Bakker. Now, this is probably, in my opinion, the top the Grimdark stuff. It is political. The characters are intriguing. They're not just these heroes. They're kind of the common people, normal people, intellectuals, harlots, you name it, it's got it. It's violent, it's despicable. There are also, superhuman warriors, which is fantastic. And a magic system that makes your stomach churn. Really bizarre, really mysterious magic system, which I think is fantastic. Beautifully written, very intriguing, a history shrouded in the unknown and in mystery. Little hint of incest as well as the Game of Thrones is. But this is one series that I can't wait to sink my teeth into. Really, really enjoy this. Read this if you like Grimdark. I'm sure you have all been waiting for this one. When I watch YouTube videos of Grimdark lists, I always wait to see if they will include this one, and they always do, and I'm going to do the same thing. Published in 2006 is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. It is the first Law series and a classic. People call him, the father of Grimdark? Something like that. The big daddy of Grimdark. Brilliantly written, very funny, very witty, fast-paced action, easy to read. The characters is what really sells it for most people, especially the character of Glocta, who is an inquisitor, torturer, who is crippled, and he's fascinating to read. Really morally grey characters. Their actions are questionable. They're out for themselves, selfish, aristocrats. Really, really good. This is a series that I will be continuing, not just because it's raved about, but I really did enjoy this first one. And I heard that the first book is character driven. The second and third books are more plot driven, which I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, because I don't know what's going on. It's just about people doing things. Just to make you jealous as well, if you can see there, I had this book signed by the man himself. Behold the picture of me hanging out with Joe Abercrombie. I didn't really have much to say to him because I've only read this book and Half a King, another book that is Grimdark for younger audiences, which was entertaining and I enjoyed somewhat. The next one is also up for debate. I've heard people really getting their feathers all ruffled because this might not be considered Grimdark. I'm here to tell you that I really believe this is Grimdark. Published in 2006 is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Now, I've got a review about this. I've got my pros and my cons, but generally this is Grimdark because the world building is grim. The characters are these thieves and assassins. How they go about their lives and their business is questionable. It's morally grey, quite grim at points. They are serving these criminals, and just the idea of these the higher class living this luxurious life, and then this city full of scum and crime and criminals, and the impoverished. It's a really great setting. Again, I'm not going to read the next ones unless I really get bored of all the other books I have to read, but definitely Grimdark in my eyes. Violent, full of intrigue, and a good read. Some of the language was a bit tough. It was a bit laborious, and he tried a bit too hard, but generally I really did enjoy this. Now this one is a surprise edition. It might not fit into the classic category of Grimdark or fantasy sci-fi Grimdark, but it is a book that is grim nonetheless, and that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy, published in 2006. This is brilliant. Now, if you want to feel despair, depressed, without a glimmer of hope, it's this book. There are some things that happen within it where people are trying to survive and really show what humanity can be pushed to do. This is the book. I was listening to a lot of black metal when I was listening to this, and it really set the mood. It is incredibly written. The characters are great. And again, I just think that if we're talking grim and grimdark, this is the one that you wanna bleak is the word I have to describe this with. This one popped up on a couple of lists for the best grimdark, and that is The Steel Remains by Richard Morgan. I've spoken a little bit about this before in previous videos. And yeah, it is Grimdark. The characters are not good, they're not bad. Retired hero who's just trying to, live out his existence, getting a bit potbelly, and has to be thrown back into the action as these sort of alien forces start to invade their world. And it is violent, it's debaucherous, it's very detailed and explicit. A fun read. I did enjoy this. This is the guy who also did Altered Carbon. Yeah, not too bad. Interesting. I like the shiny cover. That's quite fun. But yeah, the next book will have audiences divided. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people call it Marmite. Published in 2012 is The Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Now, I loved this. Again, there aren't many series that I think I've got to read the whole thing. This is one of them. If you want, they're not even anti-heroes, they are proper villains. If you want to follow a depraved character, read this. Of course, there are potential reasons for, the actions that he takes, but, a lot of people draw the line at sexual violence. So I found this gripping, really interesting, very engaging. And what I really did like as well was the mix of points of view. It does have third person, omniscient, and first person narrative following the same character, so you sort of get two sides of the same story. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to read The King of Thorns and The Emperor of Thorns. This is right up my alley. So if you like your stuff dark and grim, and this is what you want to read. Now, the next one is a self-published book by a friend of a friend who published this in 2017, and that is The Hobgoblin's Herald by A.R. Aston. Apparently getting a reprint, thank goodness, because this cover is, I'm sorry to say, not great. But the story is really good. It's really well written. Now, I know a lot of people will question self-published authors. I had no issues with this. It was well written. There weren't mistakes in it. It was really solid. The story is about a little girl who finds a hobgoblin who's in a sort of bear trap, stuck, and befriends him, frees him, and runs away to follow a group of hobgoblins on their grim raiding adventures. Multiple points of view as well. There's a knight who has this elfin blade which can cut through anything, and he gets caught up in a lot of political intrigue. So again, really rich, detailed world. I read the second one, can't wait for the third one. But yeah, definitely check this one out. Support your indie authors. But yeah, this is really good. The next one is a book that I have already done a review about, and this is published in 2018. It is The Poppy Wars by R.F. Kuang. Now, I know that I've mentioned this being kind of YA, but it definitely is not YA. Yes, the relationships and the friendships that they make along the way feel a bit like the Hunger Games, where you've got, which boy do I like? But there are some really visceral, vivid, and violent scenes. There are references to, again, sexual violence. There are, body transformations, which I won't go into details about. Very violent battle scenes. And again, the actions that people take in order to win war are questionable, and it makes you think, who's right in this situation? How would you react in a situation where there was an invasion from a foreign force? Probably not going to read the next parts. I didn't quite like the direction or the way it was going. If you are interested in the consequences of war, this is really good to really sort of see behind the curtain of, what happens to the common folk. The last of the books that I have read that are considered grimdark, published in 2022, is The Trials of Ashmount by John Palladino. This is again self-published. I met John through one of the Facebook writers groups. We got on, he shared some of his writing online, and I realized that it wasn't shit. So I befriended him. He sent me an early version that I read before it was published, I believe, kind of like an unofficial arc reader, and really, really enjoyed it. It was fast-paced, full of action, full of wit. John Palladino loves Joe Abercrombie, and it shows in his prose, in his storytelling, in his characters. So if you are a fan of Joe Abercrombie and you need to get some more, pick this up because it is fast-paced, fun, easy. Started reading the second book, but I couldn't get very far through it. Again, it just wasn't for me. The stories were converging, the characters were coming together, which is great, but it just didn't really do it for me. But the first book was solid and I really enjoyed it. And look how cool this cover is. I think it won some awards. So yeah, gorgeous. Moving on to the books that I am reading and have yet to read that I consider Grimdark. Now this one is an interesting addition to the list. Not really in the fantasy or sci-fi genre. We have Essex Dogs by Dan Jones. Now I consider this Grimdark. So this is a medieval fiction. It is a group of mercenaries that are hired to basically follow an army. I accidentally picked up the second book because it sounded intriguing and found this one in a charity shop and thought, okay, it's going to be an easy read. It's pulpy, not expecting it to be so dark. There are obviously, scenes where people are attacking undefended cities, where men are doing despicable things, raiding, other things, and it is quite brutal. It's easy to read. It's not the best written piece of work that I've ever read, but really entertaining, and again, just grim. And I've gotten to a point where you're starting to read about these characters and how they're interacting with each other, and they're all kind of despicable. They've got dark histories that we're slowly finding out about, and you're just waiting for that moment where it boils over and they start to be at each other's throats, and how they're sort of going about this wartime world. So really interesting, fun read, but definitely grim. Moving on to books that I have yet to read or may never read, but still considered Grimdark. Starting with, published in 1999, is Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erikson. Now this one will come up on most lists. It is a book that I picked up and I just haven't really felt the need to read yet. I've heard there's a lot of mixed opinions about this online, where people will say the narrative is too incoherent, it throws you in the deep end, you have to try and figure out what's going on, which is fine, I'm okay with that. But I also heard that his prose isn't super good. To be seen whether I will actually read this or not, but this will always come up as a Grimdark classic. Published in 2012, this one, I'm not actually sure what it's about, but it has come up quite a lot, and that is Malice by Gwynne. Yeah, cool. I'm getting the names right, thank God. It's a chunky book. I think I know more about his other series, the Wrath of the Gods and all that one, Fury of the Gods. Gosh, I don't know. Which is more about Viking-esque adventures. This one, I'm not too sure, but I've heard really good things. I think this is more about knights and stuff, so I think this is more up my alley. The next one I had seen on a few lists, and I found it in a charity shop, so I picked it up anyway. I'm not too sure what it's about, but it's A Crown for Cold Silver by Alex Marshall. I believe it's kind of like Mother Courage, an old lady going around in war times, picking up stuff, seeking revenge or some sort of thing. Yeah, I might read that at some point, but it's not on my priority list. So if you have read this, let me know if it is worth reading. Yes. This one I've mentioned a few times, one that I've been trying to read but keep pushing off, published in 2020, is We Ride the Storm by Devin Madson. Again, not too sure what it is. I think it's got kind of an Asian Oriental feel to it, but at some point I want to read this. It feels kind of pulpy, which I'm hoping it is, and also I love the pages, soft pages, so at some point I might read this. The last on my list, and a significant one definitely for me, published in 2024, and that is Darkness Descends by A.A. Dean. Now I'm not sure if you can see this black cover. It is very dark. It was done on purpose. You can actually see it a little bit if you get close enough. Let's see if you guys can actually see it. This one is significant because this is my cousin who wrote this, Very much in the vein of Warhammer 40,000. He's a big Warhammer fan. And it follows the story of a man from our time who forgot that he is actually a sort of god of death or slaughter, destruction, and slowly is finding out that this massive empire is slowly trying to make him remember who he is. It is very descriptive, very detailed, and if you like that kind of archaic Victorian verbose kind of description, you might like this. You know, again, support your indie authors and pick this up. An honorable mention, one book that I really can't wait to read is Between Two Fires by Christopher somebody. Heard really great stuff about it, so really looking forward for that one. But if you've waited to the end of this video, you are ready to hear probably the best Grimdark story of all time, written by probably the best author of all time. And that, my friends, is Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Now, this is the epitome of characters who are corrupted from, become morally grey. You could consider them evil. It is violent. It is gory. It is, steeped in betrayal. And it is a story that has deeply inspired me. It is probably one of my favorite stories of all time. Definitely my favorite Shakespeare. If you haven't read it, if you haven't seen any of the adaptations, you are missing out, because it is a gloriously constructed story. Well, thank you for watching so far. I'm going to say it for the first time. If you have liked this video, click like and subscribe. I'm going to try and make more videos as the days come. I hope you will come visit again. But until then, safe travels.